Stay gold, pony boy. Hello, Tom.
Hey, what is going on, Dana?
Uh, Not much. It's been a busy day. You know what I just did? I filled the Jeep up with merchandise to sell at our sales spot at Retro Relics in Lake Grove.
Fantastic.
And you heard it first here on Two Guys Talking Toys.
Now we're booth what, 51?
52.
52. They moved us.
Were we 51 last time?
We were area 51 before.
Oh, that's my bad then. I thought we were 52 and I requested 52.
You know what? No one knows where area 52 is, so this actually kind of works out.
Right. Yeah. It's super secret.
They've got the better stuff. Everyone knows about area 51. That's old news. Area 52, right. That's where the real, that's where they have the lizard people from V. That's where they keep the creature from the abyss. Just all the good stuff.
Yeah, and that's just a fish tank, really. But hey, did you get anything new?
I did, and guess what? I don't know what it is.
I love this. I love this bit. This is good.
So this is interesting because this came from Walmart, and I don't remember. I'm sure I pre-ordered something.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
At some point, and it's Walmart, so who expects to actually get anything from them? It could be.
I think I know what it is because I recently got something from Walmart, so I'm assuming it's the same.
It's just going to be It's just going to be a Walmart box.
It's the Easter Bunny I ordered before Easter. It's just got.
Oh, hey! The Easter Bunny is an angry Smurf zombie. Hey, I legitimately don't remember pre-ordering these. The Cobra Range Viper, because I know so much about G.I. Joe. And there's two of them. Hey, I ordered two.
Nice job.
Fantastic. I like these.
You know
guys.
What? It's an exclusive. You could put it on the shelf tomorrow and make some cash.
These are mine. No one else can have them.
I like how they look so much like Deathstroke.
Oh, you know what they do? And this is kind of interesting because I'm presuming in the fiction these are helmets, and it's not actually a blue man skull with a cool silver brain guy. Because I'm not that familiar with the lore, but he looks awesome. He's never taken his helmet off. I'm going to treat it like Black Mask from DC, where it's just fused to his face.
Right.
That's what happens to all of them.
Yeah, their bit is that they can be dropped in any hostile environment and they will survive. They will live in the dirt and eat the dirt, and they will find a way to make that work. Like you could drop them anywhere and they'll find a way to survive. Why they would design a helmet that looks like their brain is exposed?
Yeah,
what's that? I don't know.
Not the best. Well, I mean, it's probably a Dr. Mindbender special.
Right.
This is right up his alley.
See, as long as he doesn't give us the leather cod piece that he wears, we're gonna be fine.
Yeah, he's like, these are your options, and one of them's just the full get up. Like, I don't want to look like Axe and Smash from Demolition. I know they look cool, but I don't want to be dropped in the jungle in that get up.
He's like, you can wear this brain helmet or the gimp. I'll take the brain helmet. Thanks.
Yeah, no, whatever you got copied, and that was just his storage closet. He opened it up, all this stuff came falling out. He's like, "Oh, I meant to get rid of that." And they're like, "No, we'll wear it. We'll wear it." Like, no, you don't want to be the leather vipers? No.
We've got to be somewhere camouflaged. Yeah, I'll take the bright blue. Thanks.
No, thanks. See, this is a problem because I have actively been resisting the fire team that's on Pulse, where it's right. Those really cool black and red repaints. This figure is one of the black and red repaints, and it looks awesome. Right. And yeah. I forgot that I ordered these, and now I have them, and now I have to order the fire team because they're awesome.
Right, you do.
So that's a future Tom problem, though. What have you found?
I have a couple of figures that I'm really excited about. I got I showed what seems like a million years ago, the War Duke from the Dungeons and Dragons Necroline. So I got Strongheart and Strongheart the Paladin and Zarok the Assassin half orc. Mm-hmm. I don't know what his other half is. He's just half orc.
He's full of tinier men.
It's like an orc and a beagle. He's the mutt. But here is Strongheart in all his regalness.
Oh, that is really, see, it's a good thing that you're not into Mythic Legions, because that looks like something that would fit right in with
Right,
that
absolutely
line.
does. You know what else is great about him? If you take a real close look, that's Man at Arms.
That is, I was gonna go with Tom Selleck, but Man at Arms is Tom Selleck, so that actually
Or
works out pretty well.
or it's Bazooka. I should go get the Bazooka figure and
Oh,
hold
so,
them. this is this is before Bazooka was reincarnated as Bazooka. He was Strongheart the Paladin.
I feel like they made a movie about this starring Martin Lawrence.
I was going to go Quantum Leap, but what was that called? The Black Knight? Was it called the Black Knight?
I think so. It was a modern guy in Black Knight times and all that fun stuff. But yeah, let's send Bazooka back then.
His double scabbard. He's got the dagger that comes out.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got the dagger and then the sword, and he comes with a like a war hammer, which the original didn't come with. His cool shield, multiple hands. The cool thing is the original one didn't have this action.
Oh, that is cool. See, I'm really impressed with these because I thought that the original intention by NECA was to release, I guess, the replicas of the originals, and then release an entire line and make like the unreleased figures to fit in with your original ones. But it looks like they just went full tilt, and which I agree with. I think those look fantastic.
Oh, the cape is great. This color blue. It's great. I love that it's a little darker gray than the original, with a little more of a silver. But I like this like gunmetal gray a little better. And then Zarok the half orc. This is a fantastic figure. Of the three of them, Warduke is my favorite character, but this one is my favorite figure. And you know, remember I always mentioned how Dale always liked the odd characters when we were kids. This was his favorite D&D guy. And Dale, I picked one of these up for you. This is a fantastic figure. It really is.
I like that the hood adds a natural shadow to the top part of his face. So you can see the eyes kind of peering out from underneath the shadow. Good job.
The other thing cool about him, because he's got the big shoulder pads and he's got a different you know, his limbs are a different you know, ratio to his body than say Strongheart or Warduke. He's got, if you can see it, the double elbow. Like he's got,
Oh, that's really well hidden. Oh, it goes into the glove.
It goes into the glove.
That's really well done.
Yeah, wow. Really, really well done.
What's the plastic quality on that?
Oh, it's great. He's got some real heft. Like this is a great figure. Like you can knock this guy around, not that you would, but this is a fantastic figure. And you know what excites me about these, and this is going to lead us into what I want to talk about today, Tom. These guys, like we talked, I think last week, or maybe when I introduced that I got Angela from the Gargoyles, that I was looking forward to the other human characters like King Arthur and the Wizards, and you were like, no, thank you, I don't want them. I just want the Gargoyles. But the Gargoyles are on that 7-inch scale. They're from NECA as well, right? And I love that this figure, when we were talking about that quest that Goliath went on, this is compatible in size and scale to the Gargoyles, and looks great standing next to them. Like I love that, and this guy too. Like Zarek's design, the face sculpt and all looks great next to the Gargoyles. And when I was a kid, and I've mentioned this a couple times on the show, like this is the ideal time because all of the favorite toys we had when we were kids are coming out on similar scales, either 6 or 7 inch.
Yeah.
But then I started to feel nostalgic and I'm like, oh, you know, I wish I had everyone the same scale as when I was a kid. But then I started thinking, which scale is my favorite? Like what scale figure?
Oh, like, that's very good. That's a very good topic.
1/6. Like, well, I don't know. Like, do you like the 3 3/4 inch, the 5 inch, the 4 inch? Like we had the original D&D guys weren't compatible with a lot. They were that like in between like 4-inch scale, you know?
Yeah.
Although they were the same size as Christar, which is good. Like Elkhorn and Feldspar were the same size, and Strongheart and Christar were the same size. So I like that. But
that's I love this, and it's really cool to think about in the say in like the 80s or even late 70s, but more so 80s, when toy companies were starting to figure out that this was something that they could really ramp up, and we could like we just need to produce. Now we just need to produce. And it seems
Right.
like there was no set scale. Like you said, now we've hit that kind of sweet spot. But back then, when they were just throwing stuff out, we had the 12-inch Joes, and then with Star Wars is what, about 4
Yeah,
inches
it's
or
like a
so?
three-quarter inch. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you had it seemed like it almost found a steady scale, because you had like the Joes, you had your Star Wars, and then
Mhm.
He-Man came along and messed it all up. And again,
He-Man ruined everything,
and
because you're
again,
right. It was the 12-inch Joes, and then the Star Wars came out, and they knew they were changing it,
yeah,
but they were also smart, because what else did they release? They also released the 12-inch figures with the first movie. So if
yeah,
you were still hung up with the Joes, you can
mhm,
play Star Wars with the 12-inch Joes,
yep,
or you can have the little guys, right? And then GI Joe went the opposite. So GI Joe was like, "Oh, I see what you did. You know what? We're going to match you, and we're going to go 3/4 inch."
yeah. And I again want to point everyone towards the Toys That Made Us show that's on Netflix, where they talk about the origins of the GI Joe line. And one of the sections of it talk about how one of the designers said, this thing's too small. He had an action figure and he was looking at it and he said, this thing is too small. And he just started globbing clay onto it and globbing it
Yeah.
on. And then finally, he had this giant, monstrous looking figure.
And he was like, "It finally looks like Tom."
If at long last, if I just keep adding clay and I shift
And
it around,
muscles.
and then I was like, no, that does look like me. But how about we do this? Let's put that clump of clay here on like the biceps and give him a 6-pack. Yeah, let's do that.
They tried to do that for me, and I was like, "Let's take the big glob from here and move it to the top of the arm, and
Yeah,
that'll be
and that looks so much better now.
right." Yeah,
Now this toy has the power. But I think that all for that line, it established the more of a 5-inch, like kind of
right.
about 4.5 to 5 inches, and established that within itself. And it didn't really make any difference, because later on came Thundercats, which was 7 inches, and
Yeah, it was like the
Sectaurs,
Wild
which was
Wild
also
West after
7.
that.
Yeah, and then like you said, you had Chris Starr, who was some of the He-Man knockoff figures. Those mimicked it, so those shared the same size, but that was just
Mhm.
because they were not the more official licensed properties. Yeah, it was all over the place. Like, you couldn't have like cops figures interacting with He-Man, interacting with Jason the Wheeled Warriors. Well, partly because there were no Jason the Wheeled Warrior actual action figures; it was just
Right,
vehicles. But
right. It was
uh,
just it was no chase.
but even then, like, you couldn't have, if we're looking at the world of Jason the Wheeled Warriors and you wanted to cross that over with, say, your Mask toys, size wise, you couldn't. I mean,
No,
you could, just the scale was going to be all wonky.
right.
See,
The mask guys went well with Dino Riders,
mm-hmm,
right, and Eagle Force. Those
yes,
you could use all those guys together. Yeah.
so, yeah. So I kind of wonder, at what point did someone look around and say, we should match this with this? Because we started to see that shift in the 90s,
Yeah.
with like the Toy Biz line, Marvel figures. But and even they went outside they were like, why, what are we,
Because they did like the
3 3/4?
5-inch.
No, yeah, they established the 5-inch. They got away from the
But you know what?
4-inch and the 3-inch.
That was established a little before that, because the Superpowers figures way before
Mhm.
were sort of on that almost 5-inch scale. They were like more of a 4, but like the Secret Wars,
Mhm.
like they
Yeah,
came out at a weird scale too at the same time in 84, like when it was the Wild Wild West, they
yeah.
did it. But when the Toy Biggest figures came out, you could almost get away with putting the Secret Wars with them, but not quite.
Yeah, it didn't look quite as weird. Ninja Turtles, the same thing, because once
Yeah,
those
yeah.
popped up, and we knew the Ninja Turtles were supposed to be short, and you had
Mhm.
human characters who were just in story kind of on the short side. April O'Neil's not a tall character. Casey Jones is probably supposed to be the size of an average sized man, but within that line, not
He wasn't.
quite. But it still kind of worked. That came more down to conflicting aesthetics. at that, but as
Right.
opposed to heights. But yeah, we're still kind of staying within that 4.5 to 5 inch. They were staying kind of right there. And then the later Batman line, those started to seem to like conform to, okay, about 5 inches is where we're comfortable. So we started getting those, and they were willing to kind of go outside the norm a little bit more often. So you had like your Man Bat figures, and but the standard, it seemed like the standard buck now was becoming about 5 inches, and they stayed that way for most of the 90s, I want to say.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't
Till
until
McFarlane.
I think even McFarlane stuck with that about 5, because the original Spawn line, I think they were about 5 inches. And I mean, with all the extra bits
Right,
and whatnot in the cape, it got a little bit swollen. But yeah, the steady climb to the 6 inch came with McFarlane. They got a little bit bigger. Violator got a little bit larger, and then Marvel Legends happened, because this was like
even
later
before
90s.
that, Toy Biz was doing the 5 inch line.
Yeah.
Pre Marvel Legends, they did a line from the comic book Heroes Reborn. And they did the Heroes Reborn, Captain America, Iron Man. I think, did they do Beta Ray Bill? They did Loki and Thor. No, it was Loki, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America from the Heroes Reborn line. And they were suddenly and inexplicably 6 inches.
Yeah.
And that was pre-Marvel Legends.
Now, was that just a gimmick line? Because it seemed like even though that they had kind of settled on a 5, they would still randomly do, hey, here's a specialty line. It's this
right.
or even the that 12 inch line that was in all the KBs, where it was just larger, lower articulation. But yeah, oh wait, no, I take that back. At the time, 5 points of articulation was almost the norm. So
right, and they were just they had the elbows. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, they randomly threw that in. I think that was a test market. I really think that was sort of a test. And they were cool sculpts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except for the Iron Man. I hated that design in the comic with the big mufflers coming off his back.
Oh yeah.
It's like, why does Iron Man need dual exhaust? What is happening here?
He's powered by coal. Look, man, he built that in a cave with scraps.
With spare parts. I'm not Tony Stark.
But I think I like that the March to 6 inch settled on Marvel Legends, and then it was just an explosion from there, and then that became almost the standard setter, because then the DC Universe line kicked in, and even though they still had kind of it was almost like the smaller line was for specialty stuff, Justice League Unlimited, like that being about 4 inches, but then Marvel, or not Marvel,
the DC Direct.
Was it Toy Biz that did the Marvel Universe line, where they were also doing the about 4 inches? Was that Hasbro or Toy Biz?
Oh,
I forgot offhand which company was doing that.
The old ones, not the new ones. Yeah, I think it was Hasbro, because they were still called Marvel Legends.
Okay, because I remember when those popped up, and it had been a couple of years after the Marvel Legends had established that 6 inch was kind of like the standard, and wondering why are we doing small? Now, do you think that's because you're skewing younger, and kids need like fidget toys, or even grown-ups? Like I hear all the time that people will have like a toy that they bring with them if they're going on like a trip, or if they're just at work and they need like a little fidget something small like that makes sense to have. But if you take a Marvel Legend and you shrink it the way that they did, where it didn't have quite as much articulation, but close, because a lot of them were kind of close. They were just flimsy.
They were well articulated. Some of them had wonky sculpts that were way too thin and weird, but they were well articulated.
Yeah, and they worked well with the Galactus they put out for that line. And that is where I have dueling loyalty. So up until, I want to say 2012, 2011, I was a hardcore 6 inch. The bigger the better. I want my toys to be like large, chunky, like awesome. Like give me big stuff. None of this tiny stuff. Which is funny, because I love Battle Beast. But it's just one of my old.
You could just keep them in your cheek if you wanted to.
Yeah, you store a few in the pouch, and then when you're on the bus or you're not busy, you play around, and and then you just go back to work. But I was huge into. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just thought of something when you were asking about the odd, just randomly showing up with the 3 3/4 inch Marvel Legends guys.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that close to the same time that the 20th anniversary G.I. Joe figures were coming out?
I have no idea. I was for as little as I know about Joe right now, even though I'm collecting classifieds.
Yeah,
I knew nothing about Joe.
I may be mistaken, but I think that was the time that they started, because they started all those 90s stupid Joes and they changed the sculpt and did it up. But then the anniversary, or maybe it was 25, the anniversary ones came out, and they were designed in very much the same way as those Marvel Legends.
Yeah.
Almost over articulated. Some of them had they all were like very svelte and they had ligament strength, but they all looked like gymnasts. Yeah, but it was right around the same time, so that might have been the explanation for that shift.
Was that the Sigma 6 line?
No, the Sigma 6 were big.
Okay, I'm thinking of I'm thinking of those with the the kind of clunky articulation and the very, very stylized kind of look to them.
And they were kind of cool. It took me a minute to get, I had them, and then I didn't like them and I got rid of them. And then like a year later, I was like, man, I wish I still had those. They had a cool style to them. But anyway, yeah, I think that's why they switched, because they already were doing it. So they figured we might as well. Yeah,
and it kind of made sense if you wanted to keep competing with the collectors that were getting that 3 3/4, 4-inch line. I didn't realize what a schism there was between the 3 3/4, 4-inch collectors versus 6-inch collectors.
Yeah.
It was that was kind of a big thing. Even within the He-Man fandom, the originals were about 5-inch, 5.5, and the newer ones, the 2000X line, were just straight up 6 inches.
Yeah.
And even the classics line also skewed towards that 6-inch kind of height. So you had this divide between people who wanted the original look and the original style, who essentially wanted what Origins is now, versus this newer. The proportions were different. The style was a little bit different. And there's this big back and forth. And I always fell on the 6-inch, the larger the better scale for it, because I want big stuff. And I remember as a kid, one of the things that annoyed me more than it should have was
why do I feel like you and I are both annoyed by things more than we should be?
You know what? We're probably annoyed just the right amount. We've been told for years that we should not be annoyed by these things.
Right. And that's annoying. That's annoying.
Really grinds my gears. I was fortunate, and I had decomposed from the Inhumanoids and Tendril from the Inhumanoids, and I had a couple of the granites. I had some of the redwoods, and I never ever wanted any of the Earth Core members. And it wasn't because
they were dumb.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was one of the few times that them just being human beings wasn't the reason why I didn't want them. I didn't want them because they looked awesome. I actually liked the designs on a lot of them, but they were about 7 inches.
Yep.
The Inhumanoids
with a 3 3/4 inch head, though.
Yeah, like a tiny G.I. Joe head stuck on them. And meanwhile, the Inhumanoids, who were like a good big chunky toy, about 14 inches, I want to say, it didn't make sense to me. And I'm like, why are these in the show? A human comes up to maybe Metlar's ankle. Like, what are we doing? It didn't make. I didn't understand why. Like, I knew that Hasbro was making them. I knew Hasbro was making G.I. Joe, and I did not understand why they didn't just repurpose G.I. Joe, just random G.I. Joe molds, into Earth Core. They should have just gotten rid of the Battle Force 2000 and made them Earth Core. Yeah, and I didn't understand that. To this day, if Inhumanoids is ever made, are you listening, Super 7? I know you are. If Inhumanoids ever gets remade, Hasbro, if you're listening and are just subcontracting Super 7, I know you are. Make your Inhumanoids, make them 14 inches, hopefully larger, and then just make the Earth Core smaller. Make them little, so that, I mean, and they even said that the Inhumanoids themselves were considered the playset. So make them the scale. So my preference for the 6-inch scale wound up being worn down and ground down by a friend of mine who and I think I probably mentioned this before. We were always at war over like 6-inch figures versus the 3 3/4. It was always this back and forth, and I was always like, no, bigger is better, and he was like, no, be more economic, you only have so much real estate. And it started to make sense when I started looking into how would I make my own toy line. The idea that, I mean, you can have a 6-inch line with like vehicles and play sets, and it makes sense and it's awesome, but we don't have room for that. Like the more stuff that I collected,
or the money.
Yeah, the longer I have been collecting and the more things that I have been getting and buying things like Eternia, His Tank, spending a moment alone listening to Linkin Park because I couldn't afford Cat's Lair. There's some reconsiderations that have to happen, and and not everyone has these reconsiderations. Sometimes it's just a preference, but the 3 3/4 inch line, and I think it's come so far now. It used to be that if you had a line that was really little, that
no articulation.
Yeah, that small amount of space limited what you could do, or if you did have it, you wound up with, like you said, the kind of wiry looking Marvel figures that we had, who were, even if you get the sculpt, it didn't matter because Wolverine couldn't stand on his own, regardless of the adamantium. But now we've got companies like Jazzwares. The Fortnite line is unbelievable. They're only 4 inches. Yeah, they're only 4 inches, and those are the people that I want doing almost like all the 4-inch stuff.
And most of them look like dreadnoughts. So
yes, they fit in so well. But like the more I started to think about that, I still love me some 6-inch line. I still love, I part of me, it will always be bigger is better. Give me all this stuff. In my perfect world, when I have no, these 4 walls are not a limitation. Give me all that. But speaking more like economically, 3 3/4 or like 4-inch kind of makes a little bit more sense, and then you can go bigger later. I like the idea of, we'll take sectors. 7-inch.
Of course, you're going to take sectors.
Absolutely, give me all of them. Make the ones that they haven't made yet. 7 inches, awesome line, and Zika, I think, made the right decision in shrinking them down, touching up the articulation, because we can now, because engineering that's where we're at, and the adding like the magnet feet, perfect. Also, if they could have kept that going, how cool would that have been? Because then your insect companions wouldn't have to have been as large as they were. And if you did something like the hive, or if you hit the jackpot and you still have your original hive, those would look great. Like 4-inch sectors fighting the original meant for 7-inch monster named Nar would be awesome.
Not Monster.
Personally, I like Monster.
I like Monster better, and I agree with you. As a kid, I loved the 3 3/4 inch for exactly what you were talking about, the playability, right? Because I already said, like, we would set up the basement and we had the rubber band bit, right? Like, so we would line up and set them up and we'd shoot a rubber band, and you could knock them over, and it was drama. And you had bases and you had vehicles. Like, I can't imagine if I was a kid and the Star Wars guys were 6 inches tall. Right. Yeah. And then I wouldn't have had the Death Star. I surely wouldn't have had a Millennium Falcon, which would have broken my heart. Right. and those things. And so as a kid, like when it shifted to the bigger size for playability, now it shifted in like 84 when I got the superpowers in the Secret Wars, and they still made vehicles. You had the Superman punch job and the Batmobile, and you had the Hall of Justice and the Tower of Doom and the motorcycles and the Lex-47 and all of that. So it didn't really change much going to that, sort of 4.5, 5-inch thing, more 4.5. And then, it wasn't so bad, but then it just, it got bigger, and then He-Man got bigger, and then they weren't compatible. Like, and that bothered me. And yes, we had Grayskull, but I didn't have a lot of the vehicles. I think we had the Wind Rider and Stridor maybe, and Battle Cat, of course, and Panther. But a lot of the other vehicles we didn't have because
Hmm.
they were bigger and they were a little more
Yeah.
expensive and they took up space and
Yep.
they made noise and they did all kinds of stuff, right? And it was just like it changed the way we played. It was more, rock'em sock'em, and they were big, hefty figures, so it was
Hmm.
okay. But it really did change the way we played it, and that I think was the catalyst for us to build our own world in the
Hmm.
basement. Wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't Star Wars.
Hmm.
And then, kind of GI Joe, but it was the bigger figures where we weren't able to get as many play sets. Like
Yeah.
GI Joe had all like, I mean, geez, we had 20, 30 GI Joe vehicles
Hmm.
when, we had 2 He-Man vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So that really changed the way we played. So when I think about playability, I think the little guys, because you're right, they're not going to stand up. My biggest pain in my backside right now is all my vintage GI Joe guys won't stand up, and they get old, and
Yep.
the O ring rots, and they just collapse where they're standing like a zombie movie, right? Or you don't know the O-ring rotted, and you go to pick them up, and only half of them, and it's
Yep.
like that scene in a zombie movie where the guy's getting ripped in half, and it's so when it comes to the displays as a grown up,
Hmm.
I like 6-inch ideally because they leave a lot of you could fit a lot of them on my shelf setup. But when you
Yeah.
start to get to the 7-inch guys or bigger, like the Fury Planet and the NECA gargoyles and D&D
Hmm.
guys, but this is a beautiful figure,
Yeah.
and when I had it on the 4.5-inch scale, it was way ahead of its time. I'll give them that. Dungeons and Dragons figures from LJN were way ahead of their time.
Mhm.
But um, this is a phenomenal figure and looks beautiful on display. Whereas the little guy, he looks like a cool old toy, right?
Yeah.
But so when it comes to my display, I much rather prefer the 6-inch or the 7-inch scale simply because 6-inch still has that playability thing going on. Like I
Yeah.
feel like 6-inch figures are still made to be thought of as toys. Like
Yeah.
for instance, the classifieds or the 6-inch Fortnite figures.
Hmm.
But when you got the 7-inch Fortnite figures, they had a
Yeah.
different feel about them, right? They had a
Yeah.
different articulation. They had a different look, different detail, and they're all beautiful sitting on the shelf. But the 5-inch guys, as cool and detailed as they are, don't have that same punch on the shelf.
Yeah.
And I feel like the 6-inch, I still think of those guys as toys. Whereas when you get to the 7-inch scale, the gargoyles and the NECA Ninja Turtle stuff, that's done so well.
Mhm.
That for it makes a very impressive display. So if I had to pick a favorite scale, I think it would be that middle ground, the 6-inch figures. But
Yeah.
in my heart, it's the little guys for playability because they're just so much more toy-like. Because you could put them in a car, you could go
Mhm.
buy some cheapo car down at the pharmacy and sit them in it, like you know what I mean. And they have play sets. Like in my heart, maybe it's the nostalgic GI Joe lover in me,
Mhm. Yeah.
or the fact that Star Wars really kicked off the gotta have the giant universe of characters, but I
Yeah.
like that 3 3/4 inch size. In my soul, that's my favorite size.
It makes me wonder how some companies decide what scale to go with. I know now a lot of it is determined on who has what license. You can make it in whatever scale, but
Right.
if you're doing something like if you're doing your own series, or if you're working on, say, a Kickstarter, or like any sort of crowdfunding, for example, Four Horsemen, apparently the original intention for, say, like Mythic Legions, was to be a 4-inch line, and then they
Hmm.
started pricing it out to the factory, and the factory was like, uh, there is practically no difference in the amount it would cost you to make a 6-inch line versus a 4-inch line, which I found fascinating. Like, I
Right. When
thought that
I
was.
heard that, we had that discussion, I think, at Legion Con.
Mhm.
I was fascinated to hear that because I
Yeah.
would think that it would be a phenomenal difference in
So
production.
that makes me wonder: is that negligible amount also applicable to the 7-inch line? Because we are starting to see many more 7-inch lines. A lot coming from
Right.
McFarlane, but also, like you said, a lot of the some of the higher end lines are starting to be in that 7-inch area. And then, like you said, they start getting a little bit larger. You've got your Mondo, your Hot Toys,
Right.
those kind of figures that are getting larger and a little bit more collectible. So I wonder if again, like you said, with the 7-inch line, now we're getting away from this is just something I can crash bang boom around. This goes on the shelf. This goes in the detolf.
Plus, you think about the difference in the price. So,
Mm-hmm.
when you had that, like for instance, the reaction figures when they first came out, and they were selling for $9-10, and now they're ridiculously $20, which is just stupid. But look at the Marvel guys that are out now, right? So they've got the 97 line, that are at that size, and you could buy them for $10-11, right?
Yeah.
Now you look at the Marvel Legends, right? A 6-inch scale, and they're going for now between $23 and $25, sometimes $27.
Yeah.
And if the cost, now granted, those are a little less articulated, but if you're comparing them to say the Fortnite figures, and if we said like the Legion, at the Legion Con, like the difference between the 4-inch and the 6-inch was negligible, but the difference in your selling price is a difference between $12 and $25. Well, that's huge. Like if I could spend the same amount, if I had buy a bottle of soda and then another bottle of soda, and they cost me the same, but I could sell you one for 10, or I could sell you one for 25, I'm going to sell you the one for 25, right? Yeah. So that's kind of, then it makes no sense to do a 4-inch, right? When you look at it that way.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the 7-inch, and they're selling for $45, $50. So, like your point, if the difference between a 6-inch and 7-inch is the same as a 4-inch and 6-inch, then why not go to the 7-inch, make a more beautiful figure, and sell it for twice as much?
Yeah. So now it's question time. If you were going to make a
wait, you didn't tell us what your favorite scale was.
Oh, I didn't. Oh, this is tough because I still have that love of I'm going with 6-inch. Because I'm looking at it from an ideal standpoint. If money's not an option, if space is not an option, if I don't have to worry about any of that, bigger is better. Bigger is still better for me. I want a large scale, like fully rendered, super articulated, and then give me my giant size Cat's Lair and my giant size Fortress of Fangs, and like give me all that because it looks awesome, and I want to be able to both articulate my figures and put them in a equally large, equally awesome looking display. So that's where I'm at. So we're at the end.
Done. To answer your question, if I was going to design my own line, it would be a 4-inch. It wouldn't be very articulated, but it'd be well sculpted because I want it to be designed for both collectors and kids, and I'd want playability, play sets, and vehicles to go along with it.
Oh, you'd fit right in at Imaginext.
I would.
Oh my God, those toys are so great. So if you guys would like to do your own toy line, and what scale would it be? What would you pick? What would you choose? Let us know. You can find us on the X Twitter at 2guystalkingtoys. That's the number 2, no G after the talking. Drop us a line on Gmail. That's 2guystalkingtoys. The number 2, no G after the talking. Instagram and Blue Sky are on the way. If you enjoyed the episode, and we hope you did, give us a like. Please subscribe. Drop us a comment. Leave us a rating. Take care, everybody.